Are we creating barriers by living what most people would call quite an ordinary, normal life? Most people are living in the world and spend their free time in pursuit of pleasures, in pursuit of joy, relaxation, trying to get away from the stresses of work. And a lot of the time we are not able to reconcile the message that we're getting from our spiritual teachers, which is saying 24 hours a day, you need to be in a meditative state. So how do I reconcile those two? And the way I would see it is always remember that the spiritual tradition brought by the gurus that we would call Sikhi or Gurmat is not the monk tradition. And I think that's something very important, a point that needs to be made. Almost all the other spiritual traditions, certainly the Indian spiritual traditions, are monk-based traditions. The writings were written by monks. The teachings were by monks. And what I mean by monks is people who left their homes, predominantly men who didn't get married, didn't have wives, houses, jobs, children, didn't have the daily struggles of just day-to-day living, having a mortgage, having to study, go to school, completing assignments, having deadlines and projects. Remember that the tradition of the gurus came about as a response to all the monk traditions that were out there, not to challenge their wisdom, but to challenge their practices and to provide a way that was for the common man. So whenever you ask yourself this question, whenever you're feeling guilty about, am I allowed to even watch TV? Should I just be in a room meditating 24 hours a day? Well, if that was the path, then that was the path of the monk. The monk is the one who gives up their home, goes to meditate in a cave or a forest or joins an ashram. But the ordinary person who is living a worldly life, who is having a job, having children to look after, having to think about their finances, worrying about doing the grocery shopping and cooking their next meal, a lot of that day-to-day grind really does take a toll on your mind. And it is fine within the worldly context to relax. There is no limitation on knowledge. There's no reason why you should feel that you can't try to learn things around the world. If you watch any nature documentaries, you learn so much about the beauty of the world. And one of the things that I try to do is, for me, I can try and find the message that I've been learning in my spiritual practice. How do I see that in what I'm watching? How do I see that when I watch nature programs? It very much complements my spiritual practice, because I'm able to see, even through a screen, I'm able to see the beauty of creation. I'm able to be in awe of the creative power of that oneness. Nature's power I'm able to see with my eyes. If I'm able to read knowledge about different things, even if it's about financing, about investment, if I read a book about parenting, all of these things are part of the world. And we are not the tradition that sees the world as opposite to our spiritual practice. For us, the spiritual practice is seeing spirituality in the world, being in the world. Everything that we see is spirituality. Everything that we see is a reflection of that divine power. So everything in the world is that divine power, but you do need to be aware of how those things that you're reading and that you're watching, how do they impact your emotions? Do they bring up lustful thoughts? Do they bring up thoughts of divisiveness? Sometimes you watch TV programs where you might think, oh, look how terrible those people are. As soon as you do that, you need to bring your thoughts back. You need to see whether there's a conflict between how your mind is reacting to what you're watching or reading and how your spiritual practice has taught you. If there's a part of your mind that's judging the other person, looking down at the other person, or looking lustfully at another person, then you need to reflect and say, is this now healthy for my spiritual practice? So you need to ask yourself, is your spiritual practice being hindered or being complemented by your worldly lifestyle? And that's the way that you have to judge that yourself. It's not about cutting things out of your life. It's not about saying, I'm not going to watch TV, I'm not going to watch Netflix or YouTube, or I'm not going to read anything else. It's about constantly prioritizing your mindset. The mindset that the spiritual tradition is teaching you is one of seeing oneness in all, seeing the good in everyone, being in a state of peace, not looking down upon others, not judging others. So can everything that you do be a complement to that spiritual way of thinking? And that's really only something that you can decide for yourself within your own mind. And feel free to think about the things that you watch and the things that you read as your influences. One of the most important things that the spiritual masters teach us is your sangat is very important in your spiritual practice. Who you keep as your company. And I don't just define sangat as the people that we keep around us, the friends or the spiritual practitioners around us. For me, who influences you is your sangat. So the social media channels that you follow, the famous people who you're trying to be like on social media, the news that you follow, the music that you listen to, all of those things are your sangat. All of those things are the things that influence you. I call sangat your influences. So anything that's influencing you, feel free to try and think about, is this a positive influence on me? Is this having a good impact on me, or is this having a negative impact on me, on my spiritual progress? And then you'll be able to decide for yourself who your influences should be, who are the things and who and what are the things that you should be reading and watching and following.